Spartans to Mission Debrief. We're playing every mission of the mainline Halo video game series in chronological order, discussing our experiences and sprinkling in a little lore along the way. If you'd like to play along and have your thoughts read on the show, email us at podcastevolved@gmail.com or drop us a tweet at podcastevolved on Twitter. We'll be playing the final mission from Halo 3 ODST Coastal Highway on the next episode. This episode, we're reviewing Sadie's story from Halo 3 ODST. I'm your host, Colin Perkins, alongside David Arnold.
Hello, everybody.
And Krysta Brown.
So, fuck this Kinsler guy, right?
Oh, damn.
Yeah, no doubt.
He's kind of a dick.
He's a bad guy.
The last mission, we covered Data Hive, and if you listen to that episode, we talked about how Data Hive plays into Sadie's story. We'll cover off on more about that, kind of talk through what actually happens in Data Hive, and talk about that final audio log as a part of this episode. But this episode, we're going to talk about Sadie's story as a whole. We've already kind of talked about, collecting the audio logs around the city, so that's part of it. But you're going around the city, and the superintendent is directing you to these audio logs in a way. You get the audio once you pick it up. Once you actually go and hit X on whatever it is, a cash machine or a phone or whatever it is, then you get an audio log that starts to play, and then you also get this comic book panel, kind of storyboard thing that shows up in your HUD. The visuals are all scenes captured from the city cameras that are strewn across the city, which is pretty cool. The superintendent is the one that runs the city, so he's kind of helping Rookie understand, hey, this is something else that's going on, helping the player understand this is something else that's going on kind of during the invasion. So as we've discussed, the series of logs can be found by Rookie. There's 29 audio logs throughout Mombasa streets, and then the story is brought to a chilling end in the aforementioned Data Hive mission. The date of the game is October 20th, so this is all happening at the same time, which is kind of cool.
Well, this was during the day, right?
Yeah, during the day. So, right as as David will talk about, he's going to give us a quick overview here in a second. But the very start of the invasion is covered as part of Sadie's story. And yeah, why don't we just kind of get into it? David, do you want to take us through a quick rundown? We'll do a quick rundown of the story, talk about the Data Hive, how Data Hive plays into it, and then we'll just kind of talk about our favorites, moments, and just thoughts on the general story from there.
Sure, no problem. So Sadie's story is this super cool little kind of side story that is in ODST. You access these terminals throughout the game. You've probably heard us talk about them in the last couple of episodes, so I'll take you a high view. So Krysta mentioned before in one of the previous episodes, every time you pick up one of these terminals, it plays the next one in sequence. So it doesn't matter which one you get physically on the map, it plays the next one. So I watched them all together in one big go. So the story kicks off with a young girl named Sadie. We don't really know how much about her, but she's trying to leave New Mombasa City. She's getting to a train station. She's talking to the train. She's in a hurry. She's buying a ticket to get to, I think, the last stop. I can't remember the name of the stop at the station. And she gets on the train. She's like trying to pay with a card. It's like, no, I can't pay with a card because that's traceable. So she has to get coins. She pays with coins. And because it's an audio, it has a little bit of a visual kind of storyboard feel to it, but like she's over descriptive in what she's doing because obviously you can't see what she's doing. So a lot of the time she you kind of get that feel about it where like people are calling out random things because you can't see what's happening. So you get some kind of weird dialogue sometimes in it, but it makes sense because it's audio only. It's an audio drama essentially. She's paying on. She gets on a train ticket. She runs. She gets on the train. She's all relaxed. And it's great. The train starts to leave and then it stops, and it stops because the superintendent, which controls everything in the city, you know what the superintendent is by now if you're playing the game. It stopped the train, and then it starts to talk to her. And there's other people commenting, "Hey girl, you're talking to the train. It's like super weird." And she's kind of ignoring him, and kind of like she refers to the superintendent as Virgil, which later on gets described as what Virgil is.
So I just want to interject real quickly. The way that the superintendent talks is through like pre-recorded messages. Like, the city only knows like danger, danger ahead, and things like that. Things that the
pre-recorded
city,
messages.
Things that the city would use throughout. I don't know, just trying to keep everybody safe and in order, I guess. So that's the way that the superintendent talks. So she has to kind of understand. She has to kind of speak his language in order to understand what he's trying to say back to her.
Another thing is, it's not an AI. It's a program.
That's an interesting thing to know because of the evolution of what Virgil is throughout this story and throughout then. Actually, it all takes place in this story, essentially. So a lot of this Sadie story does explain very key important events that occur in ODST in terms of like some of the character developments, and explain some of the questions you might have in the story. Like listening to this today, we answered some of the questions we were asking ourselves, because obviously we didn't list all of Sadie's stories throughout the series. So we were like, oh, how does so and so get free, or how does that happen? And Sadie's story clearly explains it to you, which is cool. So essentially the train is like telling her to get off, you can't leave. It turns out that she's 19 and she's running away, essentially to try and join the UNSC. So she wants to go to the recruiting station at the end of the line at this train station, but the train won't let her, so she has to get off. And there's a kind of funny moment where the guy in the train is like, hey, the train has a good point. A lot of Marines are dying these days. It's not safe. And she's like, yeah, whatever, get out. And so she gets off the train and gets kind of a little bit angry. But then as soon as she gets off the train, the Covenant attack. As soon as the Covenant arrive on Earth, this takes place, obviously, during Halo 2.
When, during the ODST. I mean, it's the same time. It's Regret just came to town.
Right when the intro of ODST kicks off. So as you can imagine, you get to see, and one of the coolest things about this is that this is one of our first or kind of earliest looks in real world timeline of civilian life in the Halo universe. Especially, it's one of the only times in the games that you get to see any of this. So you get what you expect is mass panic. So humanity obviously knows, even like you forget how little the general public actually knows, as opposed to like Oni and the UNSC and us as the player. So like you see mass panic, aliens have arrived, everyone knows what the Covenant is and what it does. So it's pandemonium. So Sadie is rushing to get out of the station and get in touch with her father. And I'm kind of loosely thinking, does she get picked up here? She hasn't talked to her father. She's talking to Virgil. She's trying to get out. She's
picked up by Kinsler here.
Yeah. So then a car pulls up, and the commissioner, I think is it the police commissioner? It is the commissioner. Yes, police commissioner Kinsler, and a cop called Bradley. Why am I blanking on his name?
Mike Branley.
Mike Bradley. Right. So
Branley, not Bradley.
Branley. Oh, sorry. Okay. And Kinsler says, "Oh, Sadie, what are you doing?" Or what's her last name? I can't remember. Andesha. Miss Andesha, please get in the car. It's crazy crowd, pandemonium. It's not safe out there. So the cop comes out and kind of clears away the crowd. I think he shoots his gun in the air a little bit. It kind of clear away, picks her up and pulls her in the car. And the car then drives off. And people are like trying to get into the car and they're panicking. And so Kinsler orders the cop to drive the car away. So we have these are like the three kind of main characters of Sadie's story here. Four including Virgil. You have Police Commissioner Kinsler, Mike Bradley, and Sadie. And this is the creepy moment. And we had all said it, we totally forgot. And it's like when you're playing the game, you don't kind of realize it, how creepy this moment is when you're just listening to it. Yeah. If you're not playing the game. So I got the weird vibes off this guy straight away. I think the voice actor, I hope that's not his normal voice. He sounds super creepy even no matter what he's doing. So he is very much explains some of the stuff in terms of like what's going on. He's like super calm. He doesn't really care about the invasion. He's just, I think it allows him to play into this power fantasy in his head. So it kind of all goes to his head when he realizes certain lines of communication break down. And he has a lot of power all of a sudden, which he realizes and immediately abuses by getting Bradley to pull up the partition in his car so that it's just what's going on in the background. It's supposed to be private. And then you get him pretty much coming on to Sadie, telling her that she's saying, "Oh, please take me to the center of the city. I have to get to my father. I want to get him. He's in the labs underground." I think Sadie had a conversation with her dad already at the start of terms of like what's going on. Yeah, he tried to tell her, which is a big important note. What Virgil, like Covenant invade, she rings her dad. Her dad is like, doesn't care. he's super excited what Virgil found.
Right.
Virgil found something. Superintendent found something underground, while surveying for a new construction site somewhere, and it's totally like it's the portal. Spoilers. So this is the thing that is like super awesome. That like Virgil figures that our Covenant or the Covenant are here for this,
Right.
and they arrive, and then Superintendent finds it. He's trying to tell her this. She doesn't care because clearly the aliens are invading. Why would she care about a survey? And that's just like, I'm coming to get you. He's like, no, get out of the city. And she's like, no, I'm coming to get you. So she runs away. Anyway, meets the car, gets in, trapped. Oh no, really dodgy vibe going on in this car.
No, he was
starts to
gonna
panic.
like. So I don't know. I feel like we'll talk about this at the end. But he's straight up gonna rape her, right?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. He's like, I'm really going to bring you somewhere more private. There's a bunker that the police have outside the city. That's where we're going. But when he says it, like, I want to bring you somewhere more private, and it's like the way he says it's like, oh,
so creepy.
So you got this.
Also, like, I think it's this conversation where he talks about Sadie's mom.
Yeah.
Yes, there is weird connotations, I think, here of almost like he's done this before.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
he did this to Sadie's mom at some point when she was
Public defender.
yeah, she was a public. She was a public. In like one sentence, he explains she was a public defender. She was defending someone who was absolutely crazy and died, but then also kind of has a connotation of
No, I think
he was
somebody she was
attracted-
defending killed her.
Killed her.
Yeah.
killed
Yeah,
her. Okay.
yeah. That's it. Yeah, that's pretty much what he says.
And
that,
he also made it sound like he raped her mom too.
yeah,
It feels like he used the excuse of just a very dangerous person she was defending, that to rape and kill her, kind of.
Yeah.
That's what I kind of gleaned from this conversation, but it's a very quick line, and that kind of has to set up all this stuff. So I can see how it could be misinterpreted, or maybe we're not getting it, but that's kind of how I always saw that part of the story, but it's so creepy.
It becomes like an episode of Law and Order SVU. It's like at the beginning here,
Yeah.
it's just bizarre. It's like,
Dun,
okay,
dun.
I didn't,
Dun, dun.
I forgot about it completely, but okay, continue.
yeah. And pretty much he's coming on to her. I think she slaps him. He starts screaming, asking for Virgil out in the car. He explains that some of the benefits he has in his position is that this car is off the grid, i.e. the superintendent and Virgil cannot access it.
Also, he knows about Virgil.
So he knows all about Virgil, which is a subroutine created by Dr. Inshada to protect Sadie because he wasn't around because he was a single parent and he was super busy in his job. So he created a computer program to help look after his daughter.
Yeah, they explicitly explain that as a part of the story. Like it's like 20
yeah.
minutes in, she
Yeah.
breaks it down.
Way further on, which is interesting. And then you have Mike pretty much saying, okay, Virgil can't access the car. She's screaming at Virgil, stop the car, let me out, all this kind of stuff. And eventually Mike to the rescue. He pulls in the car, gets out, pulls Kinsler out of the car, punches him a bit, beats him up a little bit.
Mike's driving the car.
Yeah, sorry, Mike is driving the car.
Yeah.
He eventually pulls it in, gets out of the car, comes around the back, pulls him out, and like totally saves the day, and leaves him there. They grab the car and drives off. And then Sadie and her have a very quick kind of discussion and argument. She says, thanks for saving me. I want to go back into the city. He's like, hell no, let's get out of the city. They have an argument where it's clear that he just wants to leave because why would you run towards the aliens that are invading? That makes crazy sense. And they have an argument, and he pulls in and just drops her off, and she says a funny line of thanks for saving me for like 3 minutes, and then gets out and leaves.
Right.
So she makes her way back into the city. So she's in old Mombasa. So I think this is the market scene. I might be getting a little confused.
the big
there.
his name's
Kebab.
Kebab.
So you
Jonas
get the
is the guy's
kebab
name.
man. Oh, this
He's
is
my
so
favorite.
this story is full of such random characters that are so full of life. I think is really great. So she meets this street vendor who is giving away all his food for free to all the refugees trying to leave and get out of the city. You'd imagine this is only minutes, maybe an hour or two after the invasion, so it's still pretty pandemonium. People are trying to evacuate, trying to get out of the city. He's giving away his food, he's giving away his kebabs. There's like people trying to leave in their cars and they get really angry, and he's like super friendly, but yeah, friendly aggressive, and he's trying to like beating his horn to get out. And she's calling her dad at the same time, but then stopping because she's like, I have to deal with the situation, something crazy's going on. He's again trying to tell her about what Virgil found, what the superintendent found, and trying to get her out of the city. He's trying to convince her again, stop coming after me, get out. she's like, oh, just a minute, Dad, I had to deal with this crazy situation. So the vendor's giving away his money. This car is kind of trying to get past him and beeping his horn. He pretty much puts his meat cleaver through the car and explains to you, man, if you don't stop honking your horn because you're scaring people, I will pull you out of that car and make you into a kebab.
Yeah.
And your man is like, oh, okay.
It's amazing. And this guy says it so sweetly, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This voice actor is great.
So cool. Yeah, no, he's fantastic. So he's just this huge, massive man. And Sadie kind of breaks it down.
I think he said he was 800 pounds.
800
Something
pounds.
like that, yeah. He's a giant of a human being. And Sadie kind of breaks it. She sees through it pretty quickly in terms of, like, he's not running away because he knows he can't. And he's saying, he's a great line. It's a great piece of dialogue, actually, where he's giving away all his food for free. He's trying to drink wine. He's just trying to essentially party because she breaks it down that he can't get out because he's too big. So she tries to, like, engineer Virgil to come with a forklift and a pickup truck and, like, a dumpster car and all of them to come pick this guy up. And he's like, I should be insulted. But he takes it really well in terms of, he says, I'm not going down to the waterfront. Who would give me a place on a boat? I would take up the place of 4 or 5 people. I am not worth 4 or 5 people. Yeah. Which is an excellent piece of dialogue.
It was so sweet.
Yeah, totally.
You really feel for this guy.
It cuts through the core of, like, this character. Oh, it's awesome, yeah. And then he's like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm running into the city to get to my dad. I have to save my dad. He's like, oh my God, take 2 kebabs.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love my brave warrior princess.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So she's trying to say, don't give up. Don't give up on your life. There's still hope. You should try and get out. And he says, okay, I will leave when you leave. So you go rescue your dad and you come back and rescue me. Which is obviously just appeasing her because he's not going anywhere. And I imagine, we haven't seen from, so I imagine he may have died. We're not sure. He's kind of never seen it. So Sadie goes, okay, I gotta go. So she's running back into the city. And she leaves the situation behind. Now she's looking for another contact of her dad. She's trying to get through. I think, is this the casino?
She finds an ATM to talk to her dad again. So she goes up to the ATM, and there's a cool moment where the superintendent talks to her, in terms of, like, she's saying, hey, call dad, Virgil, call dad, and the superintendent's like, that is not the correct, and then you hear him kind of getting hacked out, and then as Virgil obviously takes over, and then patches her through to her dad, because obviously that's not what an ATM is supposed to do. I thought that was a very cool moment to show you the difference between what the superintendent is and what Virgil can do. So you get to see, so I know I'm using them interchangeably here, but you have to, in your brain, think of them as 2 characters that are separate. Right. In terms of what the superintendent is, just a program, and
and almost Virgil, you can almost think of Virgil as a little more human, a little more like an AI than the superintendent.
Yeah. Totally. Right. I mean, obviously very limited in what he can do, but obviously his focus is Sadie. But I thought that was cool, just where you get, like, the ATM replying to her, because clearly that's not an instruction it's aware of, and then it just hacks and does it anyway. It's cool. I enjoyed it. Sadie has a conversation with her dad here about, again, what she's doing, what happened to her. Taylor pretty much like, Kinsler's weird, but I don't want to talk about it. Her dad makes the comment of, like, Virgil couldn't see you, you were totally off the grid. That's kind of an important kind of note, just to know. So then you get, she comes up with a cool idea, which I kind of like. She says, Dad, you need to help. Can Virgil help track the Covenant forces using the cameras? And her dad's like, that's a great idea. I'll send it to Oni. Now, I think it's here, but I may be wrong. He says he was being contacted by an Oni operative, i.e. Dare, and that she's coming. She wants the data that he has found of what she's underneath. So this is Dare's mission of what you're trying to do. You're coming to get the doctor and get the survey data from this core. So I think we had a conversation in the last episode about what Dare was doing, what she knew. So at this stage, she didn't know about Quicks to Adjust, and she didn't know about the engineers. And I don't think he did as well at this point, did he? I can't really remember. I don't think it's here.
He starts mentioning them pretty early on. Like, there's a weird Covenant species, and then Sadie's like, whatever. The Covenant are trying to kill us. And
I think it's after this because she has an encounter with the Covenant right now. So she's having a conversation with her dad, and he is telling her, Oni operative has been in touch. He wants this. So she's like, okay, use the cameras to locate the Covenant on the ground troops and feed that to the UNSC. And then she says something I never caught before. What about targeting the Argus sensors? I bet you those Covenant troops are really smelly. And that triggered in my brain. Argus is the thing that you use in Halo 5, the pulse, when you are locked. That's the sensor that pulses out and locates items in. And I remember reading about it because the first time I heard about it was Halo 5, but it wasn't. It was here. So when you looked it up in Halo 5, it is a suite of sensors for locating things in our environment against like things like smell. It picks that up and identifies them. That's what it does. And I thought that was awesome. And that totally explains when you first interact with the superintendent, with Virgil, that you get a map that tells you the exact locations of troops on it.
Enemies, yeah.
Because it's not a motion sensor like you have in the other games. It is a map detailed of the city with the troops' positions that you can see. Because that's the sensors picking them up on the city.
That's cool.
Which is totally cool. Yeah, and I never figured that out before. And this story gives you that, which is totally cool.
Mm-hmm.
So the father is totally impressed. That's an amazing idea. I'll absolutely do that. Which, of course, he does. And then you get people lining up at this ATM. I think it's in a casino because an old lady's here.
Yeah,
and
her
people
name's
are trying
Crone, or she's referred to as Crone.
As the Crone, yeah. So people are looting. The city's going crazy. She's commenting that the city's gone crazy. And someone shows up behind her and wants to loot the ATM. So
well, no, that's Crone. Crone is the one that wants to loot. Yeah.
Well,
before
she has
a shotgun and she wants to blow that thing out.
Before that, there's other people. And she gets Virgil to pretend like there's police, and the sirens go off, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, the cops have run away!"
You're right.
And the Crone is like, "I'm not as dumb as those idiots." So she shows up with a shotgun and goes, "Get away from that ATM! It's mine!" And she starts shooting off, and then she kind of attacks Sadie a little bit to get at the ATM. So she says, "Virgil, give this woman money." So the ATM starts pumping out money, and she's like, explains that this crazy lady is like, "I've been coming here every day for years, giving away all my money to this casino or whatever. Give me my money. I'm gonna hit the jackpot." So she starts raiding, essentially looting with a shotgun in this casino. Then we have the crazy scene where brutes show up. So brutes show up and start attacking. Sadie runs away, and then this old lady is like, "Hell no, brutes! I ain't having none of it." So she starts attacking the brutes. They pick up the ATM and crush this old lady with it, which is super weird and horrifying. Even if she was
there's a lot of horrifying moments in this entire thing.
Yeah, like especially when all you can do is listen to them, and I think that kind of makes it worse sometimes because you're imagining what's happening in your head. So there's some terrifying sounds in
it's
this
just heavy
show.
In general. There's a lot of heavy content in this whole thing.
Pretty much. So Sadie goes and runs to hide behind the dumpster and is describing that she's hiding behind the dumpster, so you know. Waiting for the brutes to go away. They finish off the old lady because she's still alive under this ATM, shouting at them that you're not sharing my winnings with you. Then her dad rings her. I think she has a phone or something. She's got some mobile communications device.
She's
her
got
dad
her chatter,
rings her.
I think is what it's called.
Yeah, and it obviously answers out loud, and the brutes see her, so she has to run. And she's saying, "I'm not safe anymore. Thanks, Dad." And then she does a run. The brutes are chasing her. She's totally sassy. And then you have the sounds of a car screeching, coming around the corner, and it crushes the two brutes. It says more than one brute. It says brutes plural, so I imagine there's two. Because anything more than that, you think this car wouldn't really take all of them out. So we're saying two brutes. And crushes them. And she's like, "Oh my god, Dad, Virgil, did you organize this car just to show up and crash these two guys?" Which it seems crazy, but the amount of power that Virgil seems to have in the city is nuts. So totally he could hack into a car and crash it into these guys, but it isn't. Out falls out of this car Mike. Super cop Mike. So she helps pull them out of the car. They go around the front and you see some crushed up brutes that are all mangled.
Yeah, he has a good line there. He says, "That's not going to come out of the grill."
That's not coming out of the grill. So he's like, "Right, the car's totaled." Sadie kind of thanks him, and the father's there. "Thank the nice man for saving you, Sadie." And she's like, "My father says thank you." So there's some good comedic moments in this.
Yeah,
as we said,
totally.
like there's heavy content in here, but there is some light moments in there, between Sadie and Mike. So now he's like, "Yeah, I came back for you." Blah blah blah. Now what are we doing next? We are
we're getting picked up.
We're getting
Pelican.
picked. Pelican?
So they're going across the bridge.
They're going across the bridge. They're trying to get back into the city, and there's everybody coming the opposite way to them, trying to get out. You hear propaganda on the radio, a guy spouting what is clearly lies to us. "Oh, fight back, take the city. The Covenant forces are in full retreat because of everybody fighting in the city. Well done." And all this kind of stuff. So it's clearly propaganda, and it's labeled as propaganda in the subtitles if you're reading it on the in the game. So it's pretty clear what it is. Then Mike and Thing have a comment, or like Mike is saying, "Oh my god, what are we going to do? How are we going to get through this?" And she's like fighting, pointing elbows and wasn't like good manners and pointy elbows as they fight their way through this crowd. And he makes a comment under his breath, "Oh, the things you do for a kiss." And she's like, "What?" And he's like, "Oh, I'll protect you, miss," or something like that. "I won't let you down." And it's like, okay, clearly there's an infatuation, there's a love story here.
Everyone wants to rape Sadie.
Oh my god.
Yeah, some of them are nicer than others, Krysta. Okay. So they fight their way through over the bridge, and then everyone looks up and they hear, "What's that sound?" And they look up, and it's a pelican coming in. And then Sadie goes, "Hey, Virgil, is that you? Can you get eyes in the sky? Can you see anything?" And he makes the sound of guide dogs, something guide dogs, and Sadie interprets that.
It's like
to
tapping
Mike
of a
saying,
cane is what it is.
Yeah. Interprets that, "Oh no, that's the blind man thing. That means Virgil's blind, she can't see it. It's off the grid." And he's like, "Who would do that?" And she's like, "Who do you think?" And it's, "Oh no," and yes, it is. Yep. Kinsler is in the back of this pelican that's off the grid. So he opens down, comes out with a machine gun, and says, "Remember me." There's a brief bit of dialogue of, "Holy crap, what the hell are we doing?" So he wants Sadie. He is mad for Sadie.
Yeah,
so he's
this
like,
part
"Get
is
in
weird.
the
Like, why would he come back for her? It's so weird.
Yeah, in a city full of crazy people going nuts, I imagine a crazy ass rapist could have his pick of anybody. But he's no harp.
I mean, we'll talk about it towards the end, but there is a piece maybe we can tie it back to the end. So keep going.
Okay. So
and maybe I can
there's a
draw
bit of
a conclusion.
There's a bit of a showdown here between Sadie, Mike, and Kinsler. So he takes Mike's gun off him and is pretty much going. I get the impression he's about to kill Mike. And then Sadie says he has a speech about escalation.
Yeah, a couple times throughout.
Yeah, you punch me in the face, I bring a gun. And it's an important thing I learned as a politician is the rule of like escalation. So he's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna." She's like, Mike is like, "Keep talking, and I might do more than that." And he says, "No, you won't." You get the impression he's about to kill him. And when Sadie says something on the comment, I can't remember what she says to him. She has a go of him, and he's like, "Sadie, I cannot believe you are being so stupid for someone who is so attractive and so amazing. It really annoys me when you're so unbelievably stupid." And she just says, "What?" Something. He says, "What?" And she says, "Escalation." And then you hear a big dump truck come through, crashing through all the city. I get the impression it crashes into the pelican, disabling it. Because pelicans have to crash even in an audio drama. And then it dumps all its waste on top of Kinsler, and you get all the people on the bridge laughing and going, "Ha ha ha! Look at the police commissioner covered in waste." And then Sadie says, "Thanks, Virgil," because Virgil was controlling the
Oliphant, the dump truck.
Oliphant. Yeah. There we go. That's what the dump truck. So, if you've finished the game, which you probably haven't yet, if you're in order, you don't know what that is yet, but you get to see it. It's just a garbage truck. But Sadie says, "Think of it like an armored personnel carrier for this. What did she say? Something about someone who can't smell. Oh, there's a phrase for it. Something.
Smell impaired.
The smell impaired. There we go. So Mike and Sadie crawl into this dump truck, into the back of it, and then the truck takes them off into the city. And it's very clever because she tells Mike the Covenant won't read this as having human life signs. They'll look at it as an automated kind of truck, so they won't interfere with it, which is kind of genius. So when they're back in the truck, we meet another crazy character who goes, "Hey, obviously you get the same idea I did." We get introduced to Tom. Tom crawls into the back of his truck to hide. And he's an unusual guy.
He's a salesman.
So Sadie,
he's
annoying. A salesman. Yeah, so he's really annoying trying to sell these guys stuff in the back of this dump truck. Yeah, which is really weird. So they're just like, "Tom, shut up." And Sadie calls her dad via the comms on the truck. Oh, that's an important thing. Kinsler makes her take off her comms and disable it and smash it on the ground so that she can no longer talk to Virgil. But it doesn't matter. She's in the back of the truck talking to her dad. Her dad is like, it's not here. Did they meet? No, doesn't matter. Talks to her dad. He explains to her like what's going on. He explains to her then about the Covenant new race he has seen, which are the engineers. He describes them as beautiful. He says they're repairing the superintendent in certain places. They're weird. They're like inquisitive. They don't have any kind of arms or anything like that. And he says he patches them into a scene on the. No, he doesn't do it here. Doesn't matter. And he's talking to them. Essentially, this bill sets up the engineers.
Well, he talks about there's 7 engineers, and it looks like the 6 of them are trying to do something to the other one, right?
That's not here because it's visual that he shows them the feed from that, I think, or is it an audio feed? It may be here. It may be here that he talks to them. I'll say, okay, it is here. So he says,
I think he mentions it, but I don't think this is the point where they explode.
Yeah, that's
what I'm trying to get at.
That's this part.
Yeah, because don't they get out of the truck and then it's raining and then she has his jacket and they go to another screen and then he shows them what's happening. That's the.
More or less that's what happens. I mean, you're going into tons of detail here, so.
Yeah, sorry. So they're in the truck. The truck is going through the city, and then Tom gets it in his head that the Covenant are friendly. It's just a misunderstanding. We can talk to them and make a deal. And so he climbs out of the truck and starts shouting at the Covenant, going, "Over here, look at me. Let's talk. Let's make a deal. I want to talk to you," which is insane. And then obviously Mike and Sadie are like, "This is going to end very badly." So they jump out of the truck and run away.
Well, and Tom's a salesman, so he thinks that he can, talk his way into some sort of a negotiation. I guess he's just a weird character. But that's his rationale, right? Like, he's like, I'm a salesman. I can talk down anybody, right? Nope.
Nope, he can't. Wraith turns around and blows up the truck with Tom in it. And goodbye, Tom. So Sadie and Mike run away. And Mike gives her his jacket, so he has a cop's jacket on. That's kind of important a little bit later. And they call her dad again. They meet another screen. The dad explains to her what he's learned about these alien race. And that she's like struggling to keep the superintendent live, Virgil, online. Because the Covenant hit one of the data centers and it damaged them heavily. And then he made a comment that like the alien race are actually hacking and patching in and making repairs to the superintendent because they're after what the superintendent found, i.e. the survey data, the portal. Mm-hmm. But they don't know that. That's what's happening. So they're watching a group. Is a very important kind of piece of lore.
Yeah.
There's 6 engineers gathered around a 7th one. And he comments
7.
of that. Like, this is the 7 exactly underneath the Kikwani station. I think is actually where he's looking at. He's saying it's very rare that brutes leave these alone. He's never seen them. They're obviously escorted. They're obviously a commodity, that a resource that the Covenant don't want anyone else to have. And he sees the 6 are like interfering. He makes a comment as well that he knows they're pretty safe to be around unless you get too close and they blow up. So he's like, they're more or less harmless. Just stay away from them. So he says, "Oh my God, their tentacles are doing something to the explosive device on the 7th one." And then you hear an explosion. And he says, "Oh my God, the 6 Hurgok, the 6 engineers race just sacrificed themselves to let the 7th one go free without an explosive device," which is very important.
Absolutely. So
then the 7 kind of floats away. And he says, "Oh my God, that's crazy." Then it kind of, why do they run away then? Oh yes.
Because they're going to the headquarters. Because
the communications get disabled here. So that's what happens. A citywide blackout happens, and it shuts down the superintendent. And they're like, "Why would you do that in the middle of an evacuation? That's crazy. It'll ground to a halt." And she's like, "Who do you think did it?" And he's like, "Oh, crap."
Yeah.
So they're thinking, "Oh, yeah, okay, it's Kinsler." So then they go, "All right, we have to get Virgil back online. How do we do it?" We go to the cop headquarters, and we go to the emergency communications department. So that's what they're going to go do. So cut to the guys, they get to the police station, they go in the front door, there's a bunch of dead cops by an elevator. They're like, "What the hell is this?" A cop comes out, his name is Marshall, and he is having a great time.
He's having a breakdown.
He's having a great time. So he's gone crazy. He's come to enact his revenge, and a guy gets off the elevator, and he's like, "Hey," I can't remember his name, "Hey Steve, do you remember when you took my half and half milk, even though I told you not to, and it was labeled?" And he's like, "Hey Marshall, what are you doing here? You got fired 2 weeks ago." And he's like, "Yeah, I know." And he shoots this guy. Mm-hmm. And he's getting all his anger out. And obviously he's killing the cops who have wronged him. So he's gone crazy. And he says he's taken Sadie and Mike hostage. "You have to sit there and shut up." And he says, "What are you doing with a police jacket?" And she's like, "I found it outside." He's like, "Oh, you're a thief, huh?" So then he kind of says, "You're staying with me. You're not going anywhere." Then other craziness. I can't really, there's kind of a shuffle here, but essentially SWAT show up, breach the police station, come in. There's a firefight between Crazy Marshall and the SWAT cops. They kill him. They take him down. It seems like another cop are injured. They're like, "Holy crap, what the hell happened?" They see Mike. Mike has to hold up his badges. "No, I'm with you. I'm NMPD. Don't shoot. We have to get this girl up to the 14th floor. It's an emergency." The 14th floor is the emergency communications department. So they're like, "Okay, fine. You get her up there. We'll clean up this mess." Which seems weird that they've just let him do that. But anyway, it doesn't...
Agreed.
Yeah. But his cop badge is in good working order. So they decide to go up the stairs because they just saw what happened when you get out of an elevator and people shoot you. So they're like, oh, screw that, we'll go climb up the stairs. So they go up the stairs, they make it to the 14th floor, they talk their way in, they go down to they were looking for the duty officer. There's loads of cool tidbits here of where you hear, obviously this is a big communication center, you hear all these people on various phones talking of like trying to organize an evacuation. You hear like, oh my god, can't get down to the waterfront, is that ferry still running, what's going on over here? Okay, there's no reports of the Covenant outside the city, that's very important. They're all focused here, and they're just like, okay, there's all kind of coordinations. Mike talks his way into the officer on duty, the kind of head officer office, and she's on the phone. And she's on the phone with Veronica Dare, who is giving out to this woman for turning off the superintendent and telling him to turn it back on, which is kind of cool. So this officer is like, I have direct orders from the police commissioner to shut him down, and she won't do it. And then she's like, hey, what do you mean you're going to get me fired? There's a Covenant invasion here. I don't care. People are dying. She hangs with the phone on Dare, which is kind of cool.
Yep, super cool.
Cool.
Dare is pulling the power, pulling the Oni power, right?
Yeah. And it's funny how Oni's superpower, when you think about it, Oni are incredibly powerful, and even their name will get them pretty much anything they want, but doesn't overcome this woman's fear or intimidation of Kinsler. Kinsler is the power here, and it's funny how like Oni can't do that. I thought that was very interesting to me.
But a stapler
Kinsler
can.
held that kind of power.
Yeah.
I said, but
Staplers.
a stapler can.
Oh yeah. So this is a very weird moment where she refused to give in to Veronica Dare, Oni, but Sadie very cleverly convinces this woman that, hey, she says, what do you want? She turns her corner when she hangs up the phone, and they're like, I want you to turn the superintendent back on. And she's like, not you too. And she's like, no, this is different. I'm not asking you, I'm telling you to do it at gunpoint. And you was like, you don't have a gun, you have my stapler in your pocket. And she's like, you don't know that, this could be a gun. And no one could blame you if you turn it back on at gunpoint. Your life is in danger. And Mike puts in and says, yeah, it could be a grenade launcher, a rocket launcher, it could be anything. You don't know that. And this woman very clearly gets it. And she's like, oh no, don't shoot me. I'll do anything you want, like turn on the superintendent. So pushes the button. Superintendent is back online, which is a weird scene, like given like not intimidated at all by Oni, but this woman in her office convinces her to do this.
Well, it's probably a case of where, I don't know, somehow she thinks she's going to keep her job after the Covenant invade.
Yeah.
So she's like, I'm not going to, like, chain of command, I can't override, in her mind, Oni can't override what Kinsler told her, but if her life is in danger, then that's something.
It gets her out of, it's her get out of jail free card, I guess.
Right.
But it's a weird situation.
She has a better excuse than Oni told me to. I was held up by gunpoint. They made me do it.
Yeah.
That's a good point. So Virgil is back on, but Virgil is not normal, and he starts making weird sounds. A scene that happened before this. Virgil and her dad. Virgil was whistling, and she says, "What's Virgil doing?" He says, "Learning to communicate." These new race communicate by whistling and stuff. So she's trying to teach Virgil how to talk to the new race because he thinks he can talk to them, and because obviously they're not an aggressive race, so he wants to talk to them.
Well, and the sound, how would you guys describe the sound? It almost
like a humming kind
of. It's like a high pitch. I wonder if they messed around with. Well, it's a whistle, but I wonder if they messed around with balloons. Because isn't that how they're kind of held up? They're kind of floating because
they're kind
of
of gassy.
Yeah, gassy.
Oh, that'd be interesting. Yeah, if the Foley artist kind of incorporated that into making their sound.
Right.
That's cool. It's a good idea. So Virgil is responding to Sadie, but not in a way that she can understand anymore because he's just making the engineer Hergok kind of sounds.
Well, he still makes the like regular city sounds every once in a while.
At this juncture, he doesn't, and I think it's because he's obviously in the middle of being assimilated, and there's kind of, now we have what's happening in the background is quick to adjust his interfacing directly with Virgil, and he is kind of incorporating what he is.
So you mentioned quick to adjust a couple times now. That's the name of the Hergok, the 7th Hergok.
That's the name of the 7th Hergok that got released by the other ones, so he becomes important. And so they're in the communication center, and then they're like, okay, I don't remember where they're going, but they're about to leave, or is it before they get to the center? They go to the propaganda's office.
They go to the propaganda
Yeah, which
office.
is in the same building. Yeah.
Yeah, they go to the propaganda office. So they burst in on the guy. He's telling lies over the comms, and Mike is really pissed off. So you're lying to people out there, and they're dying on the ground. And your man explains to them what he's doing is, yes, lying to them, but telling them the truth that they need to hear, because there's people out there, kids afraid, people hiding in basements. These are the people that are listening. They're going to die. And he's just there. I need to fill the last remaining moments of their life with something hopeful. That's what he's trying to do. Does he think you can do better than me? Fine. He switches on and goes, hey, I have Mr. Amazing Two-Shot from NMP Commander Two-Shot. Yeah. And he's here to tell you how the fight is going on in the city. Go talk, Mr. Two-Shot. And Mike is like, yeah. Obviously the pressure gets to him, and he realizes he gets it. In terms of, you cannot tell these people that the city's wiped. You're fucked. You're dead. You're like, okay. He's like, we're trying really hard. Please keep fighting. We can win the fight. Blah blah blah. And then he kind of leaves.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Like it's obviously lying, but I think giving people hope is also necessary. It's I don't know. It's a bizarre thing, and I'm sure it happens.
It's a gray
in war,
area.
But yeah.
Yeah, totally. I've seen this before in other mediums. I'm sure, like of the propaganda during an invasion and all this kind of stuff of like trying to get everyone together to kind of resist when you're facing an overwhelming force.
I think he said at some point, like, there could be like teachers protecting their kids in a school. Do you really want to tell them they're all going to die, or do you want to give them a little bit of hope? That's a head scratcher. That's something to think about. It is.
It's interesting. It's a good point. So then what happens is E-Man goes, oh, look, you have a caller. So somebody calls in to the show. He makes it sound like it's a radio show, but clearly it's run out of a police station. Anyway, you have a caller, and it is Kinsler. Kinsler says, that was a very good speech, Mike. However, Sadie, you're going to do whatever I tell you to do, because I now have access to the fire suppression systems in the laboratory that your father's working in. And so Sadie understands this, of what it means. So he says, you're going to do whatever I say. So it cuts to the next episode, and the guys are running, and they're going to a train station. They need to get to, is it Kikowani station? I can't remember.
Yep.
It's they're trying to get to Kikowani station, because there's only one train station in the city, and everything takes place in this train station. So the guys are running, and Mike is trying to say, why are we going to do this? You know what's going to happen to you when you give in to Kinsler. And she says, he has the fire suppression system. Mike's like, so? And she's like, if he turns that on, it floods the lab with argon. Or is it argon? She says it's something like that. It might be argon.
Yeah, argon.
Yeah, it was argon.
Yeah, argon. So he's like, so humans can't breathe it? He's like, no, dumbass. It freezes you. You'll die.
Yeah.
So he's like, oh. Then it kind of, the penny drops of what's happening here. So like, they come up with a plan, kind of. I think she makes it sound like they've had a discussion of what they're going to do. So she makes her way into the train station, and there's crowds of people there trying to get on. There's a train there surrounded by dirty cops, and they all have machine guns. So she fights her way to the front, and then you did a conversation between kind of the lead cop, who I think we'll meet later, if it's who I think it is. It probably isn't him.
Yeah,
no,
I think it's somebody else.
You think it's somebody? Yeah, it must be someone else at this point. So she gets to the train, and the cop is saying, we cannot hold the line anymore. The crowd are going to run onto this, get into the train. So he's like, you don't have to wait anymore, because he sees Sadie coming. So he gets her into the train, and then he kind of says, I can't remember what his goal is. He's like, we're getting the train out of the city. You're coming with me.
Well, he knows how important the engineer is.
Yeah, he gets that. So he's like, we're leaving right now. And he tells the cops, kill the people on the train station. We don't need them anymore. There's no good to them. Shoot them. And she says, you can't just shoot them. And you can hear the cops outside the train mowing down the crowd.
Yeah, that's
which is awful. And then Sadie's like, you can't do it. He's like, why not? I'm getting really good at it. For example, an hour ago, I killed your dad. Mm-hmm. So like, he already pushed the trigger and killed Sadie's father, which is horrible. So she's stunned. Doesn't get it. And then I can't really remember what happened. Oh yeah, he tells the guys to leave the train to move. The train stops. Virgil's now back in charge. Virgil has come back. Sadie's been talking to him. He's still making weird sounds, but he's making other sounds as well. So he's getting
he's ordering
back
at some points. I kind of already mentioned it. He's ordering. He wants to get his hands on the engineer because that's important to the war effort.
Does he?
Yep. And so
he wants to be a hero.
Yeah. At one point he says, I have the line here. He says, just because I'm a murderer doesn't mean I'm unpatriotic.
Oh.
So he's like trying to keep up his image, public image, despite being a bad guy.
Ah, interesting.
I think he just feels like everyone around him's gonna die anyway. Everyone who's seen him do all this
just
dumb
expendable.
shit.
Yeah.
But he wants to get an engineer so that he can bring him back to the UNNC. So he obviously wants to survive, but he also wants to have something to show for it.
Yeah, this guy has a plan. Okay, I forgot about that. Now what happens is Virgil stops the train station, stops the train. It won't go anywhere. There's a crazy fight going outside, and you can hear Mike rousing up the crowd. He has like a chant or a motto, like, do you want to live? And everyone's like, yes. Like, are you willing to fight? And he's like, yes. He's like, then let's fight, yeah. So everybody rushes the cops outside the train, and you can hear them getting and defeating the cops. Obviously, there's supposed to be like a suicide run of just like these people getting mowed down, so they're fighting back against these cops with nothing. So just overwhelming them with numbers, which is horrifying.
Yeah.
And Sadie's like, come on, Mike, thanks. You know what I mean? Good job, Mike. So this must have been a plan of something, because you got the impression that like this was deliberate.
Yeah, they were just going to take the train over, right?
Yeah, I think there's a speech here again mentioned about escalation or something. And
yeah,
he's like, you hear Kinsler shouting at Virgil, like, Virgil, let the train go or Sadie will die. There's nothing you can't do to me that won't hurt Sadie as well. And Sadie says, no, there is one thing. And she goes, Virgil, open the doors. So Virgil opens the doors to the train, and you get this horrifying audio experience of this crowd rushing the train and ripping Kinsler to shreds, like ripping him, beating the crap out of it, and pulling him apart.
Creepy.
It's like, it's brutal, it's wet. Do you know what I mean? There's
yeah.
Oh.
You can kind of hear bones breaking.
Yeah, it's intense. It is intense.
Yeah, it's rough.
And then Mike eventually gets in. All these people get in the train, and now
so
you guys want me to stop at the last? Is it here?
Yeah, let's stop here.
Yeah, okay.
So that's great job. Like that's the majority of the story. That's like the 29 logs. Is that whole overview?
I'm tired.
So now let's go back, and maybe Krysta, do you kind of want to take it over from here? Let's go do Data Hive, and we've already talked about it, but we're in the opening of Data Hive, and we find that cop. Do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, so of course you get the 29, so now we're working towards the 30th. So if you're just going for the audio log like I was, you actually can start at the second rally point, and it actually starts right on sublevel 9.
Oh, okay.
Which is really nice.
So if you want to reload, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's because I reloaded to go through the streets and stuff like that, and then reloaded Data Hive. But basically, if you remember, we go through Data Hive, we meet this cop, he's heading towards sub-level 9, he's kind of not telling you exactly what he's doing. If you don't have all 29 audio logs, he dies from buggers as you drop down to frozen sub-level 9. Now we know why it's frozen.
Right.
And if you have got all the audio logs, he obviously drops down with you. You guys fight through sub-level 9, and he comes to this previously closed door. So if you don't have all the audio logs, you go up to this door. It says crime scene, no entry. So if you do have the audio logs, he says, stay here. I need to go check on something. And you can actually just stay there. Eventually you have to go in the room, but you could just stay there if you wanted to. But if you follow him into the room, it's this laboratory, and there's a dead body in the corner, and it's all just frozen over. So this cop is actually working for Kinsler. He's double checking to make sure Sadie's dad is actually dead.
Yeah.
With the data he has. And I think he's also looking for information on Virgil as well.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah, so Kinsler sent this dude to go check that the dirty work happened.
Yeah. He's obviously very upset because he's like, no one else can know that this happened. I have to kill you. But
I think he doesn't kill you until you get the audio log, I think.
No, I got the audio log after he tried to kill me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, he kills you straight away.
Okay, because he explains what's going on maybe, and he's like, oh, wait, you're not supposed to know that? Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, you know too much. I have to take you out. So he has a shotgun. I guess on higher difficulties he might be tough, because I was on normal, and I had my silenced pistol, and it actually took a couple rounds in the head to drop him.
Really? Wow.
I don't know if I was missing or something. But yeah, so it's a really cool set piece, because you get to see where Sadie's dad has been this entire time. You get to see his room, and there's a telephone, which is probably the phone he's been talking to Sadie on this whole time, and it lights up in the yellow that everything else is lit up. And you get to hear the tearful goodbye between Sadie and Virgil.
Yeah.
Because she's on the train. She can leave. Virgil wants her out of the city, and he also knows that Dare is looking for him. She says, how are you going to get out of here? What's going to happen? And I think he says, Oni, heroes from above, from the sky, or something like that, in his way of saying things.
Yeah, what's really great now, I was talking about, like, Virgil can now do more than he ever could before. Because right now he's using playbacks of audio recordings that you've heard throughout the series, which Virgil wasn't able to do before. He had his own set commands that he could use. But now he's taking audio clips from everything you've heard from radio stations, from phone calls and stuff like that.
Like the kebab guy. The kebab guy saying, like, my warrior princess. Sadie saying, I need you to live. It's
like the way Bumblebee works in, like, Transformers.
Yeah.
In the way that, like, he just takes the words and phrases from different places to make a sentence. So it's different people's voices talking, which is amazing. It's so well done.
The one that gets me is when it's Dr. Andesha saying Sadie in a bunch of different ways. It's just like, oof.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, Sadie, 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 Sadie. Like, you know.
Yeah.
It's almost this beautiful kind of going through what just happened to her, like all of the different... It's almost all of the really important audio logs or audio bits that she's kind of experienced in this horrible day she's had, just all culminating to give her this speech on, you have to live, I need you to live on, I'm going to be fine. And it's almost kind of like, I'll find you a little bit.
Kind of, yeah.
It's a pretty great moment to this really awesome story. I do want to say that Sadie's story does not end here.
Right? You're right.
She actually has a part in Halo New Blood and Halo Bad Blood. So she actually is still part of the ODST crew and the ODST story long after New Mombasa happens. So if you want to know more about Sadie, those two books are really, really great. She's a very interesting character because her and Virgil just have this really interesting relationship. So
yeah, and it's important to know that at this point in the story, I know we've covered it from Data Hive, this is like Virgil has been assimilated by Quick to Adjust, which now is just known as Virgil colloquially, I think, as well. So like the subroutine is now with this organic computer, and it is now for all intents and purposes an artificial organic intelligence kind of. So it is a real character. So that's what's talking to her right now, which is kind of interesting to note that like this is just the birth of this new character in the series.
I think it's explained later in the series or maybe in one of the books that when Quick to Adjust absorbed Virgil, the subroutine he absorbed this subroutine, and basically part of him became the subroutine.
Yeah.
Like this engineer and this program are now one being, and it still has the subroutines in it to protect Sadie.
Yeah, so now this engineer now feels the same way Virgil did towards Sadie, which gives them a bond, which is an important thing in those other books that is explained in later in Sadie's story and stuff.
It's cool enough to have a city look after you, but then to have like an engineer be your watchdog. That's
cool. Because Huragok or engineers are very one note. It's very much, I'm going to fix this, and this is the task I've been given, and I'm just going to stick to this task. And so in a lot of the expanded media, you've hit roadblocks with these engineers and trying to convince them to do something that isn't part of their overall like directive. Mm-hmm. So him taking in this almost human program made him a little human, where he's a little more, he can be swayed easier back and forth, especially by Sadie.
Yep, totally. Well, that's good. I think that's a great overview, and we scattered some of our thoughts along the way. I did do a community question, so if you guys can look up Krysta, you can do Discord again, and Dave, you can do Facebook. I just asked a poll question, so we'll cover that at the very end. But I do want to just talk about kind of any other highlights or any other things that we want to talk about. One of the big takeaways for me is it's just an interesting. I can't remember. I'm sure in Sci-Fi it's happened before. It's been done before. But like this relationship between a person, Sadie, and a artificial intelligence, a computer, just the way that it's written throughout this story and portrayed, I think is really well done. And it's an interesting scenario, and it really makes you think. And especially as the story concludes, it gets emotional. It gets very emotional. And I'm glad, 343 has moved that story forward in the additional lore that we talked about. But it just in this 50 minutes worth, like, you get attached to both characters, and you do kind of feel a little sad at the end. They did a really good job. I do want to mention here, I guess, the company that did this is I have the name written down right here. Fourth Wall Studios. It's the same company that did I Love Bees. If you can remember, we talked about that that was the ARG leading up to Halo 2. And once I realized that, or once I heard that fact, it kind of started to make sense, like the way that the audio drama is written and delivered. It kind of does make sense. Like, they're kind of similar if you go and listen to those I Love Bees audio logs and this in this story. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, I can see how the same company came up with this. It's well done. But yeah.
It is very well done.
Mm-hmm.
Something that they did really well that I can really appreciate is the way they tell you what's happening. Like, they say stuff like, oh, that guy just got blown up. Oh, this ATM is on top of this lady. But they don't do it like, oh, the ATM has just fallen and hit this lady.
Yeah.
They say it in a natural way that actually flows, that doesn't seem like they're overly trying to point out what's happening because it's an audio log.
Yep.
It's very natural, which I really, really appreciate, because you don't want to be like, oh, that guy just got shot through the head. Oh,
Right.
My goodness. The brutes are coming slowly towards us, and it's very scary.
There are some points where you can always hear kind of the chaos going on in the background. And at one point I thought, like, Sadie should be kind of screaming the entire time, but that wouldn't play well on an audio drama.
She's almost cool and collected the entire time. I
Yeah.
mean, she gets panicky at times, but she keeps a level head.
Mm-hmm.
She does really well, all things considered.
But I'm kind of commenting on like she's in the middle of this crowd for the most part the entire time, and they have it in the background a little bit. But if they turned it up any higher to like how it actually would be, then you just wouldn't be able to hear
you couldn't
anything,
hear.
right? So they have it there as a a environment piece or whatever, so that that all this chaos is to help put you in that environment, to help you put you in that place in New Mombasa. But they do crank it down so that you can actually understand what's going on.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Why do you think Virgil put these audio logs out there? He wasn't trying to catch Kinsler because he's dead. He wasn't trying to save the father because he's dead. Sadie escaped. Why do you think Virgil decided to have the ODST find all this information?
He did. Yeah, that's interesting. They show up.
Go ahead.
They were, it's when you interface with Virgil, when you get the map, then these things become highlighted. So Virgil is very much directing the rookie to find him, I think, maybe to understand what he is, to give you that scene, that moment where him and Dare come to meet Virgil, maybe. I don't know, maybe to build trust.
Because he hasn't been
I'm
found
not really
yet.
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I think so, maybe.
I
mean,
almost
I don't know.
thought it was like a way for Virgil to kind of set the wheels in motion to get him to reunite with Sadie, maybe?
Yeah, maybe to build
Sure.
that element where like Oni would understand the importance of having Sadie and Virgil together.
That makes
Yeah.
I guess maybe, yeah.
Just the relationship, and now he is a Huragok, and they worked well together, which means she would work well with the Huragok. And it even highlights, like, she wanted to enlist, and she wanted to do all these things. And you know this is going to end up on Dare's desk or someone in
Right.
Oni's desk to analyze.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I did want to touch on what we talked about with Kinsler.
Mm-hmm.
And Kinsler, it's kind of a forced evil bad guy. You know, it's just a little bit over the top. Like the fact that he can, and I understand that the story needs a villain, an antagonist to kind of move everything forward and tie everything together. But his evil nature just seemed a little bit forced, and the fact that he keeps coming back. Like, what was the benefit?
He was too focused on Sadie?
Well, and I think maybe the only benefit of him going after Sadie is because there was the tie between Virgil and Sadie. Maybe that's why he felt like he needed Sadie as well.
He was for police commissioner, he was very well informed of what was going on. Mm-hmm. So maybe he did draw that link between, he was preventing Virgil and Sadie from talking because he knew she was getting away and because of the control she had over Virgil. And maybe then he understood what Virgil was becoming, and then now I need Sadie to control Virgil.
You're right.
Maybe there's that part of it.
That might make
sense. Could it also be something to do with the mom? Like, he's a very depraved person. Could it be he wanted like a legacy thing?
Maybe there's more to that story.
Like, do something to the mom and then do something to the daughter. This weird kind of...
Or maybe he couldn't get what he wanted from the mom, so he's taking it out on the daughter.
Sure.
Maybe there's probably more to that backstory there. But
he is a really weird... It's weird to have a character that's so depraved, I guess. Just not depraved not depraved in like I want to control everything, but depraved in a very sexual way. Mm-hmm. It's weird to have that in Halo.
Right. Yeah, in Halo, exactly.
And, I mean, they do it in a way that it's not, like, really in your face. You kind of have to be an adult and understand, like, what these warning signs are to really get it. Because when I was younger, I totally didn't get it. When I played these as, like, before I was a teenager, I didn't get it at all. So, I mean, it's definitely... They do it in a way that you wouldn't be worried about, like, maybe someone younger listening to this because they just won't understand it at all.
Well, and maybe as you're listening to it in the background while you're still playing, it doesn't register. And that's why I think we all kind of said, I forgot how rapey this is.
Yeah, totally.
When you're kind of, you're hearing like him threaten her, but maybe you're not realizing as you're playing the game and listening to the audio log, like what he's actually threatening her with until you finally sit down and watch the whole thing, all 50 minutes down together.
Yeah, it's really weird.
Let's talk about, because we're running long, why don't we talk about just kind of our favorites. There's this cast of wacky characters throughout, right? Let's talk about our favorite encounter, I guess. And then anything else you guys want to touch on, we'll just do the community questions and then try to get out of here. Everybody's favorite is probably the Jonas guy. I don't see how the kebab guy. Like, I don't see
Mr.
how you
Kebab,
could be.
Mr. Kebab is MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it just because of what he is and the realization. Just the interaction between her and Sadie is just so real. I love it. It sells her as a great kind of empathetic character where she understands where he's coming from and not so subtly, I'll get a forklift to rescue you out of the city. Yeah. But like it's a cool moment, and especially with this guy realizing the situation and being like, I'm not worth more people. So I'm just gonna eat and drink and be merry till they blow me up.
Yeah, that's good.
It's cool.
Also, the voice actor is just so great.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
He just sounds amazing.
The voice acting in general is good. Like Mike, he's got this Australian accent. I think he's really well done.
They really nailed these accents. They're all very interesting and they're all very appropriate to where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would have pegged him as South African, but only
you're
because
probably right.
No,
you're probably right.
It's African.
Yep,
yeah.
Not Australian. You're right.
But there's similarities there, and we know that Oni's headquarters is in Australia, so it's totally possible.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows? Just
yeah.
The voice actors are great. Obviously, they had to be, given the fact that it's mostly audio drama. And I think they do a great job. The characters are really great, and Jonas wins.
Yeah, I mean he's the most lighthearted, and David, you also mentioned throughout this story and in the writing, there's a lot of humor that's dropped in and out. The part about Mike scraping Brutes off the grill, and Sadie's pretty sassy throughout. There's a part where I just do want to mention Virgil. There's a conversation between Sadie and Virgil, at one point, and Virgil's obviously, worried about her because she's all worked up. So he suggests statenazole, which is a drug to help reduce stress. And if you hear it again, statenazole, Joe Staten, I'm wondering if the company, this Fourth Wall company, just threw that in there because they were working with Joe closely, totally. I'm sure. Said, here's your little name drop in our story. Thought that was good. Anything else you guys want to touch on before we just do some community and wrap it up?
No, I'm okay. I think I mentioned pretty much everything I wanted to say in my spiel.
Cool.
Yeah, it's great. Great. Sadie story's cool. Well worth digging through and trawling through the game to find.
And there's a lot.
I loved.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go on. I loved the interaction, the payoff of listening to all these audio stories and then seeing the ramifications in the game. Mm-hmm. So getting to interact, because it's very distant, because obviously these are past records of something that happened before you dropped in as an ODST. So it's kind of cool to see the story finish in the game. I thought it was cool.
And you can pick up, I listened to it twice before this recording, and I read through Halopedia's overview, and I still didn't pick up on a couple things that you mentioned, David, during your overview. So, there's just so much crammed into this story, lots of little details. It's very well done. Krysta, any final thoughts?
I think that it definitely has some very interesting ramifications in the universe. I think it explains a lot of stuff very quickly, but in a very understandable way. Mm-hmm. Like how Huragok work, how Virgil ended up as an engineer, and just simple stuff like this. And then also 343 continuing these characters in extended universe material is really, really cool. This is definitely worth getting all of those dumb audio logs. Mm-hmm. Or you can just listen. There's a bunch of places on YouTube to watch it. It's about an hour long. You can do it when you're just hanging out. You don't have to watch it. They have the little slides, but they're not super necessary.
Yeah, they add a little bit, but yeah, I wouldn't say it's, make or break on the story. It's obviously an audio drama. All right, let's just cover off on the quick community thoughts. My question was whether or not the people from either our communities, Discord or Facebook, have actually listened to the entire thing. I think before I was aware of Sadie's story, I've listened to probably half of it, but it wasn't until we did this show that I actually sat down and listened to the entire thing, in one go. So I just asked the question, have you listened to or watched the entire Sadie story? What did Discord have to say?
So on Discord, we have 6 yes and 4 no. It's actually kind of surprising how many people don't take the time to listen to Sadie's story. Because we keep saying this over and over again, but it adds a lot to the game. It gives you a lot of context.
Well, and this is from our lore-specific groups, right? I wouldn't be surprised if the split was that for just anybody that's played it. I'm sure it's way fewer people that have listened to it for just your I don't know, anybody that's played Halo 3 ODST, but this is also the lore focus group, the people that are interested in all this nitty gritty, and almost half of them haven't listened to it in Discord. What was on Facebook?
Almost the complete opposite. We had a way bigger. 16 people said yes, 4 said no.
Oh, okay.
So we had a way bigger turnout on Facebook for people that have listened to it.
That's great. Any comments worth mentioning?
Jesse White says, yes, I got the Chio for getting all the recordings. It's definitely good. That's probably an incentive for people like that to get the achievement. Mm-hmm. I made a message because, I'm cool. And Nate Bacon just said yes. So hi, Nate. And yes, he said yes.
Hey, Nate. What up? Cool. All right. Well, that will do it for our debriefing of Sadie's story from Halo 3 ODST. On the next episode, we're going to be ending the drama, ending Halo 3 ODST, covering Coastal Highway. Send us your thoughts at podcastevolved@gmail.com or drop us a tweet at podcastevolved on Twitter. Until next time, evolved.
Evolved.